Oops, something went wrong. The page you requested has moved or doesn't exist. If you follow the link, it's already broken. Don't worry, reported it. Alright, alright. Interesting. Interesting. The page we've been visiting for what seems like a whole year now. Something has happened to it. So, what can we find? We have access to this page over here, which is seemingly the same thing, but I can't seem to find anything related to power. Now, that might just be my own incompetence, right? I'm looking for different sub-menus that seem to relate to what we were looking for, but or rather relate to what we're trying to look at, but I can't really find any sub-menus that actually refer directly to what we're looking for. So this, as far as I can see, as at least for me personally, I can't seem to use it effectively, and I find this page useless, right? This is the page we used to follow and visit, and Bullzoid had it on his video, and I've shown it before. I tried to find a video of mine where I actually show the page. For some reason, I can't find a video. I'm pretty sure a few of you guys have seen I've shown this page before. I've probably linked the page before. This is quite unfortunate that we are missing this page. And it's interesting that this page isn't actually missing for 12th gen. So, if I show you, well, does the Core Ultra page work? Volume 1? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Let's type in watts, W for watts. Okay, that's going to be way too many. Let's try and find electrical. Electrical. Let's see. I'm just curious what Core Ultra looks like. I couldn't find it previous or earlier on, but yeah, I can't find it. But anyway, this should be the same document we used to use for this one, right? 12th gen. Let's see. Voila, it's right there. And what do you know? I was looking at the package turbo. I'll go search up package turbo specifications. Nothing. Interesting. Okay, whatever. Doesn't matter. We don't need it anyway. Okay, so 12th gen has the datasheet available, volume 1, with all the stuff, all these fun values, right? Okay, so what did I say last time? What did I say? I said power is king because power tells you how screwed you are when we're in the region of high current and compromisingly high voltage. All right. Technically, maybe I should say the other way around. So high voltage with compromisingly high current, because the current is more susceptible to degrading the chip than the voltage, because at the voltages we're talking about, oxide breakdown is effectively a non-issue, right? So if I search up Igor's lab and find the document or the experiment they conducted where they checked the chip spinning and whatever, let's find this. Here we go. So, here it is. So, Bullzoid mentioned this, and I'm not entirely sure I agree, because something tells me the 1.5 volt vid chip does not have any more likelihood of degradation or likelihood to degrade than the 1.4 volt chip right here. The reason I am suggesting that is because if you actually run a i7, i5, i9 under load from 13th or 14th gen, what you might see is that the load voltages are oddly similar. It's something I have been very curious about because it seems like the base voltages, aside from the load voltage that's going to happen, the load voltage that's going to end up changing just due to just load line, because obviously the i7s and i5s are drawing less current, therefore they have less LLC acting on them, therefore they're going to run a higher load voltage because they can sustain a higher load voltage, right? So, but at baseline, you might find that the voltages between the i5, i9, and i7 are oddly similar. And there's a reason for that. The reason is, and I wish I could demonstrate this better, but these two cores of mine that like to run 5.8, if you notice, they're never drawing that much voltage. Now you might say, hey Dane, it's a polling issue. Do a faster polling. Okay, cool. 250. Oh no, let me set it. 250. Reset. Here we go. There we go. Stay still. Okay. What do you see? What do you see? No difference, right? Now I was expecting that because these two cores that like boosting high, this is a TVB boost that only happens when you have thermal headroom and that you're in a low load state, so a low current load state. Under a gaming load, you're not going to see your chips boosting to 5.8 or 6. It's not going to happen, right? It's effectively inconsequential. It's like, I don't even think it matters. I don't even know why they bother referencing it, or why they bother making a big deal of it. Yeah, they could probably, they should probably market it like, oh yeah, we have two chips. Oh, sorry, we have two cores in each chip that can run slightly higher, and they will run higher, under certain circumstances, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But in practicality, these are non-issues. They're just non-factors. They just doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter, right? You're never going to see it in game. So this idea of this, 1.5 volt spike on a core causing the core to degrade or something, it's just not very likely, because oxide breakdown is not going to happen on Intel CPU at 1.5 volts. It's not going to happen. Just not going to happen. The spec is way higher than that. Even the watered down spec calls for like 1.52 volts. And as far as we understand, that's chip wide. I mean, I don't even think that's for a single core. Like, it stands to reason, if these are your two best cores, they can probably handle more voltage. If you think about it, probably can. So, anyway, to get back on topic. So if it's not a voltage issue, which I very much do not think it is, if it is a electromigration issue, then how do we unpack this? Easy. Okay, so I actually wanted to make an Excel document for you guys, but I haven't done that. I'm sorry. I sincerely apologize. Let's start from the top. 12900K. Spec page, 125 watts. Oh wait, let me say product page. You want to guess? You want to guess? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 125 watts. Exactly the same as on the product page. 12900KS. Let's make this easy for us. Well, you already saw it. So the product page tells us the KS has a PL1 of 150, and the technical documents say we have a PL1 of, you saw it before, 150. Whoa. Whoa. Now, do I need to put PL2 there? Honestly, it doesn't matter because PL2 is inconsequential. It's always correct according to the product pages and the documentation. It's always there. So PL2 is inexcusable. If your board is not running PL2, you're just creating a compromised situation. Just that's that, right? Okay. But just so you can see, PL2 241, PL2 241. Okay. So what more do we see? I've beaten this horse way to death. I've beaten this horse to death so many times. This horse is like done. It's finished. Like we have really like worn out saying we've beaten the dead, like we've beaten the dead horse is like not even, it's not even adequate by this point. Like it's like, I keep saying it. These P-core specs, the vendors looked at them and they were like, Intel, slow down, pause. It's not going to happen. Why? Because they realized they needed a margin of error. Because these chips were barely spec'd well enough for these Intel P-core max turbo frequency boosts. And they knew that they needed a margin of error. Now, why don't we see 12 nanometer degrading? Is it because the silicon is just a more resilient version of 10 nanometer? Probably not. Probably not. Okay? Probably not. 10 nm. It says somewhere here 10 nm. Let me find it for you guys real quick. Where does it say 10 nanometer? It says it somewhere. Oh, it's Intel 7 now. Oh, they changed it. Wow. Okay. That's fun. Okay. So, sorry. Is 12th gen using a more resilient version of Intel 7? Very unlikely. In fact, it would make no sense that you would actually have less refinement on the node over time. That makes absolutely no sense. The longer the node exists, the better your yields. The more consistent your yields, obviously. So why then are we seeing that a CPU that has a earlier, less mature version of the same node has less manufacturing defects? At least anecdotally from user reports, why does it seem like 12th gen CPUs have far less manufacturing defects? And we can even try and find that Unreal Engine 5 developer Intel NVIDIA DLL crash data. Let's see if we can find that chart that Bullzoid showcased in his video. Sorry, I'm scratching my beard, guys. Apologize. You probably heard that. Nothing here. If I don't find the article, then I apologize, but I'm probably not going to find it. Okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. We already know what you guys already know what I'm talking about, right? So you know about the whole pie chart where it says that it's 13th gen, 14th gen CPU. So you get the point. Okay, so and I'm saying seemingly because I'm not trying to catch a case. I'm not trying to get in legal trouble. I'm not too sure what's going on. At least when I'm trying to access the page, it doesn't work. For me, at least. So I don't know. Look, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that when I try and get the page, it doesn't work. It's broken. Like for me, it's broken. For you guys, it might not be broken. I don't know. I'm not saying it's malicious. I don't know why it's missing, but it's seemingly missing, right? So this is just kind of interesting how the older resources are readily available, but the newer docs are seemingly not. It's pretty weird. It's pretty weird, right? But now, another angle. So am I saying that vendors were respecting PL1 and PL2 on... Wait, let me add PL2. Were they respecting PL2 on these chips? I do not believe so. I don't believe so. I am quite certain that on 12th gen, at default, and just the way we were all running our CPUs, most people were running the 4,000 watt limits. Most people, I believe. Because at the time, it wasn't a concern. And the vendors hadn't even begun to enable the limits, right? So this was years ago. So most of us ran 4,096 watts as our PL1 and PL2, and no one cared. No one cared. And nothing happened. It's completely fine. The chips did degrade, but only when you put them under a lot of thermal and power stress if you were overclocking. But under spec operation, they were completely fine, right? Now, vendors didn't respect PL1 and 2 back then. But the max P core all core had a large margin of error. 4.9, and I put a star gigahertz versus 5.1 gigahertz. And I'm going to put maybe... I think I can't recall the 1200Ks was 5.0 in game or what it was. It might have been 5.0, it might have been 5.1. But at least for the 1200K, it was 4.9 versus 5.1. What I'm saying is 5.1 was on the spec page. That's what Intel said your chip could do. But when you put the chip inside the motherboard, you were getting 4.9. Right? So it's interesting how the vendors took it upon themselves to create a margin of error, because they probably knew that this was not wise. Right? Okay. So now we get to our favorite CPUs ever, right? 3900K, 3900KS. So, you guys know, you guys have all seen, this was 253. This is 125. PL2, 253. Right? It's 150, that's correct. This is 253. And I do not want to hear from anyone that says the technical document said the PL1. It was never 150 and 125. It was never. It was 253. I am very sure I saw that. That's something we've all seen. It's something the vendors respect, and I can prove that because I can show you my hardware info. So if you want to tell me no, I'm wrong, it's a Mandela effect, I misremembered it. No. Then why the heck are the vendors following the old spec? Let me show you. I am very, very confident if someone has a copy of those old documents, PL1 and PL2 were matched, just like Asus do it, just like every other vendor does it on the i9s. PL1 and PL2 are matched. I am very confident. Very, very, very confident. So, what that means is PL1 and PL2, according to technical documentation, is wrong. Is wrong. It means that the technical resources, these documents, these datasheet volumes, that I'm assuming the vendors use for their own purposes, the PL1 spec was incorrect. If what I'm saying is actually spot on, then what that means is PL1 has been wrong the entire time. Then it means we have to respect these PL1s. And by the way, if you're curious, 14 gen is exactly the same. The KS always gets a little bit of bump, and then the K version gets a slight decrease. Now this might just be due to just how they want to bin it. So maybe it's not a thing about resilience or whatever, but it's different. But yeah, it's what they are, right? You can even, I mean, it's exactly the same for 14. Okay? I mean, I can just do this. I mean, the KF is exactly the same, so same CPUs basically. So Wendell from Level 1 Techs, apparently the cases he saw, there was IO issues, there were cases where disabling equals will fix stability. Now, it's not a problem because the P cores, equals, and cache all feed off the same rail. So P cores, E cores, and cache ring all feed off the core cache rail. E cores have an Atom L2 rail, but they are still powered by the P core rail. So if disabling equals helps stability, if lowering RAM speed helps stability, does that mean that the ring is degrading? No, because the P cores, E cores, and cache all feed off the same rail. What does that mean? It means that fixing stability could be a matter of any one of those things. It means that putting less strain on the IMC by lowering RAM speed could help the ring have a more stable line of communication with the IMC. If the ring is struggling, then yes, having a IMC at, let's say, 1500 megahertz will potentially help, compared to having it at 2000 megahertz. But this is not new. Many people in the overclocking space knew that RAM speed being faster does put more strain on the CPU's ring, right? Like having higher RAM can affect the ring, irrespective of how fast the ring is. We know this. This has been known for a long time. The entire subsystem is dependent on every segment being stable. So if a P core is unstable, the P core might make your RAM unstable. If the RAM is unstable, it makes your cores less stable. But that's been known for a long time. It's something. It's not new. It's not like a new finding. It's something we've known for a long time, right? So this rail, the existence of this rail essentially means that if you have IO problems, if you have E cores that are causing the problem, or if you have one or two P cores that need to be saved, it's all the same thing technically because it's the same rail. So any one of those things that are compromised could affect the entire subsystem. So really, it's not so surprising that like lowering RAM speed could help a little bit. If the degradation is small, I mean, if your CPU cores are very slightly degraded, or if the ring is slightly degraded, whatever, dropping the RAM by a good amount will probably get you back to stability. If not for anything else than the fact that your cores are running less fast or slower. Less fast. Great English. If the cores are running slower, crunching data slower because they're communicating with slower RAM, then you have less heat generation anyway. And because because the cores are running slower, because they're not outputting as much work, they're going to be more stable under the same voltage. Meaning that if you had a issue with degradation, that would help, right? So slowing the CPU down does help restabilize it. Obviously, that's come on, obviously, right? So we shouldn't be surprised lowering RAM speed can fix the problem, or disabling the odd E core could fix the problem. It can, of course it can, because any one of those things could be affecting the entire ecosystem within the chip, right? So we shouldn't have to look at stuff like, could it be the ring that's because no, because the entire subsystem depends on stability of everything in the subsystem and communication, effective communication, and these chips, data gets crunched really quickly. So I mean, the chip has to be stable all around. We know this though. Everyone knows this. You can't have like a barely stable CPU and then like jack up your RAM data rate. It's not gonna happen. Everyone knows it doesn't work. If your CPU was barely stable, was 6,000 megatransfers RAM, 8,000 is gonna put it way over the edge. We've known this for a long time, so we know the entire subsystem has a very sensitive, it's a coexistence between all the different pieces inside the Intel CPU. It's a very complicated system, right? And talking about I/O and talking about NVIDIA DLL errors. Why? Because think about this. NVIDIA make use of resize bar, AMD have SAM, but if the issue relates to something of how NVIDIA GPUs communicate with the CPUs, and that's why it's causing the DLL problems, it could be a matter of resize bar, potentially, I/O problems, meaning headphones, mouse, keyboard, whatever. Tell me, what is the first point of contact in the CPU for the GPU, mouse, keyboard? What? Headset? What? The ring. Because for the GPU to communicate with the CPU, it needs to communicate via the PCI Express lanes, right? So where does all that traffic go? To the ring. Right to the ring. It hits the ring, and that disperses it to wherever it is to go, like in the CPU, right, internally, right? Same with the headphones, with your keyboard, your mouse, the USB. What happens? I/O bus, ring, has to hit the ring. Hits the ring first. Has to. It doesn't go to a core. How would it know where to go, right? It has to get to the ring. The ring is the distribution channel. It's the river that flows inside the CPU. It has to hit the ring. What does hit the ring? RAM. The RAM communicates via the VD2 rail. That hits the memory PHYs, but eventually ends up in the ring. Memory PHYs, straight to ring, gets to a core. So the only thing that doesn't get directly affected is the RAM. At first, at base level, but it still gets to the ring. But it makes absolute sense why a GPU, for example, would have the DLL crashes, out of memory issues. But I mean, think about it. If the CPU is accessing the GPU's memory, which it has to, obviously, for all the shader caching or whatever, it has to. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know or care enough to know exactly how game shader pipelines work. I couldn't be bothered, but we all know that the CPU has a big role to play with regards to frame queuing and shaders and blah blah blah, whatever, this and that. If the entire core cache subsystem is compromised, there you go, right? So let's not focus on I/O problems and RAM speed and being like, oh, that's new information. Oh, that's a new clue. No, it's not a new clue. It's not. It really isn't. It's relax. We've always known that faster RAM makes CPU cores less stable. We've always known that. It's been forever. Like, having faster RAM by proxy makes your CPU cores less, because it makes the cores run faster. It makes them crunch more data more efficiently. It means the cores output more gigaflops. And that makes them more susceptible to crashing. It makes complete sense, right? And I/O, the GPU's I/O, technically, I mean, basically, the CPU thinks it's I/O, right? So So what? Right? No big deal. No big deal. Okay? So, again, we arrive at the same conclusion. It's current migration. It is electromigration. We all know it's it's known. Why are we running from this obvious conclusion that, it's silly? Like, we know it's electromigration. We know it is, right? Because it happens faster when people run stupid loads. Why do we know? Why is it that myself and many others on OCN knew that these chips were more prone to electromigration literally a year ago? Why is that? Why is it the case? Because there were internal findings that were, not disclosed publicly, so to speak, and there were people in our community that we'd interact with that had this issue, running 350 watts, 400 watts, whatever, running the ring way too high and running the voltage way too high, and then running the cores with all these factors that created far too much current at far too much power draw because of a high load voltage, regardless of whether or not they could cool cool the load. These individuals would degrade the crap out of their chips. It's been documented more than once. So we know that electromigration does happen on these chips under the right circumstances. Now, to the average user, it's alarming because the average user should not be having these issues. But before the BIOS updates, everyone's chips ran at 4096 watts max. Now, they would never get there, obviously. There was thermal safeguards like the TJ Max, but at TJ Max, drawing about 280 watts, you're still in trouble, right? You're still in trouble. So now that we have this data regarding server CPUs, or I believe it was server CPUs, what could that mean? Let's think about this, right? A gaming PC with 360mm AIO plays COD MW3 at 150 to 180 watts, approximately 65C. Now, this is not going to be an exact science, but let's think about this for a second. Sorry about that, guys. Hit my mic. Sorry about that. I hit my headset mic. Apologize. So, gaming PC hits about 65C on the CPU. So, what would a server CPU with a server cooling solution hit? Okay, if it was hitting 83, if a server CPU hits 83 with a server grade air cooler or small form factor liquid cooler, it's probably drawing roughly, right? I'm not saying I'm not saying it's exact, but it's probably drawing roughly around this region of power. Let's say even 200 watts, potentially, to hit this. Because this CPU is hitting 83 degrees at like 240, 230, 240. So what does this mean? It means these server CPUs are hitting in the high 100s of wattage for a prolonged period of time. Now, I can't conclusively say how long, but for a longer than short duration period of time, right? What does that mean? Well, now I'm going to be very careful. The Intel Volume 1 13th and 14th gen the resource document is currently seemingly unavailable, to me at least. It's seemingly inaccessible. I'm not sure if that's 100%, but it seems to be unavailable. From my past looks at that document, I am very confident that PL1 and PL2 on these 13th and 14th gen i9s were set to 253 according to those documents. I am very confident that that's what I observed. I am very confident. I'm quite sure I have screenshots somewhere of those random tables because I for whatever reason if I discuss them somewhere, I'm pretty sure I have screenshots uploaded potentially if I could find them, but I'm very confident that PL1 and PL2, due to past looks at these documents, were matched. And further evidence from the ASUS's current, set limits. Because I'm not certain, but I would imagine Intel may have communicated with these vendors to help them set up these baseline profiles. And if that's the case, then this should be enough proof for you to understand that PL1 and 2 were matched in those resource documents. But for some reason, PL1 on these product pages is much lower. And that's very concerning, to me at least, because you can see that with 12th gen, it's just not the case. And so what I'm wondering is now you can guess. I first said the issue was margin of error. It is. Margin of error plays into it, because if our chips were not targeting these crazy frequencies like 5.5 on a chip that was factory validated for 5.4, if this was set to like 5.2 or 5.3, I would never crash. I wouldn't crash in years, because I would never notice. I would never notice the chip is degrading. Never. Because I would never get there. It would never get weak enough to where 5.2, 5.3 would never run. So the first issue was always they were overspec'd by the vendors in BIOS. Why? I don't know. The other issue was 4096 watt limits on 13th gen and 14th gen chips. Right? Because there was no margin of error, degrading them is extremely detrimental, because you see that degradation immediately, right? Because of how high the chips target frequencies. That's why the only way to really fix them is to go and lower your max peak or clock yourself, because that way you're basically compensating for that unfortunate degradation that happened. Right? So, whereas the vendors should have been compensating themselves before any of this ever happened. But, anyway, the other issue is, it may very well be that the only way to run these chips for long durations, reliably and safely, is to respect PL1. Dane, how do you know this is PL1? Easy. 12900K, Intel spec page, 125 watts. They call it base power. Technical resources, 8 plus 8, 125 watts. 125 watts. Power limit 1, PL1. Hey, what do you know? 1200KS. Base power, quote unquote, 150 watts. PL1, 150 watts. 1300K, base power, PL1, 125 watts. PL1, 253 watts. What the hell? Weird. So, it may just be that the worst has finally come upon us, where to run these CPUs reliably, you may need to respect PL1. And if that's the case, that means if you play a game like COD that draws 180 watts, do you want to guess how your CPU gets to 125 watts? Or you're not running 5.5 anymore. That's all I'm saying. You're probably going to be hitting more like 5.0 or 4.9. So that will be about 10% performance loss on the CPU side. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm not accusing Intel of anything. I'm just observing what's in front of me. I'm breaking it down for you. I'm giving you my thoughts. And I do honestly believe I'm right. I think I'm right. I think I've pretty much found what may be the issue, because this is quite compelling to me, at least. So yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm gonna leave this up one more time for you to look at. There we go. That's my conclusion by this point, because without respecting PL1, it may be the case that these CPUs degrade much more rapidly at PL2. And it makes sense because PL2 is always meant to be like a short burst of power draw, right? And all that the lack of margin of error in the i9 SKUs from 13th gen, 14th gen does is mean that you're going to hit your degradation detection sooner, because you're basically at the limit already. Your chip's degrading fast, and then you've already now lost your boost bin. Your 5.5 is gone, and your 5.7 is gone on this one. So immediately degrade, boost bin gone. Now you have to go down a boost bin, degrade again, boost bin gone. That degradation will take a bit longer, I think. Maybe, probably not actually. Might actually not take longer, which is scary. But what we could see is these 1200Ks, they might, if it's possible that maybe in a few years we might start seeing them degrade to where they can't even do 4.9 anymore. Maybe. It's very possible. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, that's my opinion. Hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know what you think.